In 541 AD, a terrible pandemic spread across the ancient world, striking the mighty Byzantine stronghold of Constantinople to its knees, and ripping through the great port cities of the Mediterranean Sea. It's named the Plague of Justinian. The pandemic was caused by a type of bacteria called Yersinia pestis, the same bacteria that would come to be responsible for the Black Death 860 years later, and its carrier was the rat flea. Ancient writer Procopius Caesarea first encountered the disease in Egypt. This led the Byzantines at the time to assume that Egypt was where the plague first originated. This made sense, as Egypt was the biggest producer of grain in the ancient world, and provided wheat to civilizations all over the Mediterranean. The perfect means for the spread of a deadly pandemic. Expert historians say otherwise. They believe that the disease originated in China and spread through the ancient highway of the Silk Road. The pandemic made its way along the roads, infecting Asia, North Africa, India, and then Europe, killing 30 to 50 million people, wiping away half the world population from the history book. When the plague reached Constantinople, it spread like wildfire. Procopius recorded that 10,000 people were dying each day from the plague. Four months after the disease had arrived, it disappeared, because it became so deadly that rats and humans infected would die before perpetuating the disease. Justinian felt no remorse for the surviving citizens. He charged them with their regular taxes as well as tax for their dead neighbours, most likely to fund its campaign against the Goths, who were reinvigorated after the plague had struck their enemies. Farmers had it off the worst, as they had to withdraw their crops so that they could pay their taxes. This surged the grain prices for those living in Constantinople. The Roman Empire had reached a critical point in its reign. Just to make it worse, the disease had just struck after the Byzantines had retaken the Mediterranean coast of Italy, which would have reunited them with the Western Roman Empire for the first time in 200 years. In 568, the Lombards stormed down into Italy, taking it back, creating the Kingdom of the Lombards. These 4 months shaped Roman history and initiated the final decline of the Byzantine Roman Empire. What was it that made such a strong and culturally rich ancient force so susceptible to the plague? Well, I believe that there are a number of factors that contributed to their downfall, including an increasing reliance on long-distance trade, which allowed disease to spread across the globe, the densely packed nature of the city, allowing disease to spread quickly and cause huge amounts of casualties, and the heavy taxation that the Byzantine economy completely relied on and couldn't give up. The Justinian plague was the first ever plague pandemic in world history. The reason that it occurred when it did was because trade between Eastern and the Western Roman worlds had never been this big, and especially due to the Silk Roads connecting China to Europe, allowing plague to travel with ease. The Byzantines simply were not prepared to deal with such a deadly and quick-spreading disease. The nature of the city allowed the disease to spread like wildfire. And without experience with such a plague, Justinian could do nothing but to watch his people die. Byzantine economy was built on a need for population to tax. Once people started dying, the Byzantines had few people left to tax, and this financial crisis largely contributed to the Byzantine downfall. The plague of Justinian was a deadly pandemic that used long-distance trade to spread its way across the ancient world, most notably contributing to the downfall of the Byzantine Roman Empire.